Do you get tired of people asking you for money all the time?
They don't tell you no for an ounce.
But who was mooching?
She was like, I can help you clean him out.
And who was murdering?
Devious, manipulative, evil.
Tonight, follow a cat and mouse game to smoke out the killer. Crazy characters.
I'm like, Lord Jesus, I'm gonna go to jail.
This is somebody with pretty much of a room temperature IQ.
Secret confessions. Caught on tape.
I'm so deep in this with you right now. If you go down, I go down.
And one of the most outrageous showdowns we've ever recorded.
Why are you laughing? A man is dead. He's been murdered,
Yes.
clearly.
Yes.
And you're laughing.
Here now, David Muir and Elizabeth Vargas.
Good evening. Want to get rich quick? Well, easy. Just win the lottery jackpot. The number of people who do these days is staggering. Some 1,600 instant millionaires a year. And the jackpots just seem to be getting bigger and bigger. Most of us are still grieving over not winning that $448 million jackpot just a month ago.
That's why we're still here. Yeah. But along with that big check, the winners should always get the warning, be careful what you wish for. We've all heard the stories about friends and families being torn apart over newfound wealth. But murdered? Matt Gutman on the case in Florida tonight when crazy, stupid luck runs out.
Here are tonight's winning numbers. 12.
6.
13.
6 numbers. 34, 42. Just random digits.
52.
Until sometime later, when those 6 numbers put a man 6 feet under. His body eventually discovered buried beneath a concrete slab in a backyard. The incredible story begins far from the glitz and beaches most of us think of as Florida. Past the citrus fields in the middle of the state, all the way to the outskirts of the sleepy town of Lakeland. And the doorway of this barbershop. It's here where owner Greg Smith first met a 42-year-old man with the colorful name of Abraham Shakespeare.
He used to come around to the shop, let him work, get paid, or buy him something to eat, you know. That's how I first met him.
His name, Abraham Shakespeare, evokes both the Old Testament and Elizabethan plays. But our modern-day tragic hero would have read neither. He was illiterate and down on his luck.
You know, he was a less fortunate person.
You couldn't make it up. Shakespeare was like a living, breathing Lotto commercial. The kind of guy you'd love to see moving from the poorhouse to the penthouse overnight.
Action News. Breaking lottery news, you're not going to believe this.
And one fateful day, the fairy tale came true. Of all people, Abraham Shakespeare won a jackpot worth $30 million.
And one day, he came to the barbershop, and he was like, Greg, listen, I'm finna buy me a new car. I hit the lottery. Man, get out my face. He ain't hit no lottery.
Oh, yes, he did. Shakespeare bought himself that new car, fancy new house, and lots more. But as so often happens, this Lotto winner's drama didn't stick to the script. That's because the money also brought unwanted attention. Novelist and longtime Florida crime writer Carl Hyacin has seen it before.
All of a sudden you have friends you didn't know you have, and they're crawling out of every rat hole you can imagine.
Did you know that he was losing his fortune? Did you know that all that money was being frittered away?
We had heard the rumors were in the community that he had given money to everybody.
Greg's sister, Sanji, says Abraham was so sweet-natured he couldn't say no to the endless mooching. And as Shakespeare's millions slipped away, so did his sunny disposition.
Every day he come to the barbershop, and he was like, I wish I could go back to my old self. I wish I didn't even have no money.
But he was serious when he said that.
He was dead serious.
Then, one day, a woman magically appears on the stage. No one knows exactly how she found Shakespeare, but it would not have been that hard. He was all over the news. Her name was Dee Dee Moore.
How would you describe Dee Dee as a person?
She was the type of person you couldn't put your finger on.
Dee Dee was surely different. Unlike everyone else clamoring for his money, Dee Dee claimed to be interested in Shakespeare himself. She even said she wanted to write a book about him.
I did a book on Organize Me Now. It's a finance book on financials, organizing your finances and everything. I never went ahead and got it published, but it is copyrighted.
She seemed perfect to help Shakespeare. A money manager who came from Central Florida, she was married and supposedly running a nursing staffing agency. But had Shakespeare checked into her background, he would have found some huge red flags, convictions for writing bad checks, and making up a false story of a violent carjacking.
But I think there's a lot of Dee-Dees out there. I mean, you could go to any city in Florida and a Dee-Dee would pop up if you won the lottery, maybe more than one.
Why do you think he trusted her? What was it in her that got him to trust her?
His illiteracy, his kind heart.
When she had that introduction, Dee-Dee convinced Shakespeare she had the financial chops to salvage what was left of his winnings.
As we got talking more about the book, he kept having problems with all his financing, and that's when he had asked me to help him out some.
This is somebody with pretty much of a room temperature IQ, and yet here she moves in.
Shakespeare purchased this house to be her office, but the book never materialized. The only pen to paper appeared to be Dee-Dee writing checks in Shakespeare's name.
Do you get tired of people asking you for money all the time, Abe?
They don't take no for answers.
But pay close attention to this, the only video of Dee-Dee and Shakespeare together. You'll notice, instead of talking about the past, Dee-Dee asks Shakespeare about his future.
So where do you want to go to?
It don't matter to me. I'm not a picky person.
California. You want a foreign country? Cozumel.
Later on, this video would become critical when detectives came to suspect something sinister.
Are you going to miss your home?
Yep, I miss it, but life goes on.
Or does it? Not long after this interview, the man who was everywhere was suddenly nowhere. Shakespeare stopped coming into the barbershop. No one saw him driving around town with Dee-Dee anymore either. Where was he?
How many cases do you think he worked?
60 to 100 investigations.
Where does the Abraham Shakespeare one rank?
It definitely has to rank number one. I mean, it's the one that sticks out the most.
Detective David Wallace and his team of investigators entered the picture soon after.
He knew that something was fishy, but it seemed like he didn't have enough evidence.
Correct.
With everyone wondering what had happened, Dee-Dee was the only one with an answer.
I don't want nobody to be able to talk to me. I don't want nobody to be able to track me. And I'll come back every so often.
She explained to the detectives and anyone else who asked that Shakespeare had skipped town, tired of people hounding him for cash, just as that videotape she created seemed to suggest.
Are you going to miss your home?
Yep, I miss it, but life goes on.
Only one problem. The cops find no corroborating evidence. Shakespeare has simply left on his own.
We certainly hope Abraham's alive and well, and he has successfully hidden himself away. But our investigation doesn't lead us to believe that at this time.
It's about this time that Dee-Dee reaches out to Greg Smith. Turns out, Greg isn't just Abraham's boss. He's one of his borrowers, too. He owes Shakespeare 63 grand.
I was going through some bank issues, and I was waiting on the bank to give me a loan. And he was like, well, why don't you just pay me back? Next thing I know, he had papers drawn up in a $63,000 check.
The cops would learn that Dee-Dee now has a proposal for Greg. Help her avoid the heat, and she'll help him avoid his debt. Fast forward a few weeks to a most unusual night at the local Cracker Barrel. Dee-Dee is having dinner with Shakespeare's mother, Elizabeth, when Dee-Dee's phone rings. She says it's Abraham calling from wherever he is, but in reality, the caller is none other than Greg Smith, Abraham's friend and boss from the barbershop, now in cahoots with Dee-Dee.
I was like, Mom, how you doing? This Abraham. I'm okay. I just want to let you know I'm okay. And I hung up.
So that's how he spoke,
just
sort of
how he
slowly
talks.
and haltingly.
That's just how he talked.
Why would Smith do such a cruel thing? He says he thought it was okay because it would make Abraham's mother feel better. What he didn't know was that the cops are already all over Dee-Dee. Their surveillance tracks his phone, and a short time later, they pull him over.
And this is right after you made that phone call?
Yeah, they was like, get out of the car. I said, oh, Lord. I'm like, Lord Jesus, I'm gonna go to jail.
So now the cops are questioning the barber and still following the blonde, Dee Dee. At that point, no one could have predicted where the case would go, or that the big break would come from a little can of Red Bull. Stay with us.
'20 continues with crazy, stupid luck. Once again, Matt Gutman.
Well, once they started doing a lottery in Florida, all of us who lived here our whole lives knew that it was just going to be a recipe for disaster for some people.
Carl Hyacin knows all about bizarre Florida murders. The real ones he covers in the Miami Herald, plus the ones he makes up. Novels like Lucky You, where a Florida lottery winner ends up dead.
Florida, it really is a magnet. It's a magnet for predators. It's a magnet for scammers. It's a magnet for sleaze. And it also makes for the stories that are beyond what you would even think of writing in a novel.
Like this story. Abraham Shakespeare, an illiterate worker in a Lakeland, Florida barbershop, has won the lottery and then vanishes. His boss, Greg Smith, has been pulled over by the cops after he made a fake phone call to Shakespeare's mother, pretending to be Abraham. Right away, they realize he's no criminal.
Were you ever suspicious of Greg? Well, the first day, obviously. But it came clear in that first interview that he was a victim of Dee Dee Moore's manipulation.
Dee Dee Moore was the supposed financial planner Abe hired to manage his money. Detectives suspected her and decided instead of putting Greg Smith behind bars, they'll put him to work in a convoluted cat-and-mouse game to trap Dee Dee.
He actually turned the tables on her. He actually scammed her, and that's the beauty of it.
From that moment on, in nondescript back lots were shopping centers all around Lakeland, an ordinary car like this would pull up, and an extraordinary encounter would begin.
Getting ready to talk to Dee Dee. I'll give you a call as soon as we leave here.
With no police experience whatsoever, barber Greg Smith has become a Sunshine State Serpico, a top-secret undercover police operative gathering evidence on Dee Dee Moore. The trap is set.
Everybody in town seemed to think that he's come to a bad way, but nobody had any evidence.
I didn't set a plan out to go catch him. I just told him I'd see what I could do.
I think what we should do is come up with a
What he did was record hour after hour of conversations with Dee Dee Moore, tricking her with a homemade spy system straight out of James Bond.
But an extremely delicate microphone as well.
That's brilliant.
That's the Dee Dee Moore catch can.
He had devised this catch can himself, a recording device inside a Red Bull can.
There was no drones, there was no sophisticated eavesdropping. She's shooting off her mouth, and the guy's talking into a Red Bull can. But it's perfect.
I worked undercover narcotics for 8 years, and I wouldn't have came up with this.
How critical was Greg's Red Bull can with the microphone inside?
It was great because it got those conversations. I mean, 90% of those tapes speak for themselves.
Dee Dee thought she had bought Greg's loyalty. Remember, cops say she told him that if he helped her out, she would help him out, forgiving the $63,000 loan he had taken from Abraham.
If they ever come back to you, a guy paid you to do this.
Yeah.
For Abraham.
In this conversation, she wants Greg to call a man who'd been telling the cops Shakespeare was dead, using a fake voice, convince him that Abraham was alive and well.
See, he keeps telling everybody Abraham's dead. The other day, he went around to the bar and said all kinds of He's killing me, man.
Well, I'm finna go do this here right now.
Are you sure he's not gonna know your voice? Because if that's
Baby,
blown, we're
I got you.
Dee Dee's name, of course, was not to be brought up.
Well, they'll never know about you anyway. I never give you up. You know what I'm saying?
Ever.
This is one of the many recordings revealing Dee Dee's plots and unguarded thoughts.
I'm so deep in this with you right now. If you go down, I go down right now.
Yeah.
You don't understand
Ever.
that. If you go, I go.
You can never prove
And that's the way it is.
I'm not gonna get caught.
Doing this type of
I got to find Abraham. I just need some time. And Eddie's
Dee Dee never suspected anything, believing they had that business arrangement.
I'm gonna go see if I can't get you that money. I'll call you in just a few minutes.
And at this point, were you convinced that Abraham was dead?
Not yet still.
Not yet?
Nope. Nope. Because she hadn't really showed any signs that he was dead.
Even though the police said that they suspected her in murdering him?
They had a suspicion, but they didn't know.
What you think about this damn detective Wallace when I called him?
And he's still trying to bring me up. He's still trying to say I killed him.
So every time he met her, you were there watching?
With the exception of 1 or 2 times.
Was there ever a point at which you felt like Greg Smith was in danger or threatened?
So yeah, there were times that he put himself, just by helping us out, probably did put himself in harm's way.
Smith turns into Dee Dee's yes man, agreeing to anything she suggested, even posing as a dangerous drug dealer Dee Dee fabricated and blandly named Ronald.
I'm like, well, who Ronald? You know what I'm saying? Who is Ronald? Well, Ronald is the guy, the drug dealer from Miami that saw Shakespeare. I'm Ronald. Ronald's imaginary.
Oh, what a tangled web Dee Dee was weaving. Ronald's connection to everything would be unclear for some time.
I don't even know Ronald's last name.
Not until another conversation in Greg's car that January. Dee Dee had come not to mourn Abe Shakespeare, but to re-bury him.
Just like when we dug my mother's septic tank, all you gotta do is dig some steps in the wall to come out.
She asked me, would I help her move Abraham's body? I was like, huh?
See, the thing is, it's kind of out in the open, like neighbors would be able to see whatever I'm doing.
They ain't gonna be able to see me because I'm gonna hit that about 6 o'clock in the morning.
You heard it right. Dee Dee has just revealed to Greg and the cops she knows where the body is. Greg says he suddenly realizes the truth. He's speaking to Abraham Shakespeare's killer.
Then she goes on to say, I can show you where the body's at. But the problem is the body's on my property.
Just like I figured, the goddamn body's still on that property. We're moving the body tonight.
When you first heard that, what was your reaction?
I mean, I felt like I won the football game at that point.
The evidence mounts. On this Walmart security tape, Dee Dee is seen buying a tarp and other items Greg told her he would need. But even more damning, he convinces her to give him the .38 Smith & Wesson pistol used to shoot Shakespeare. She trusted you that much that she handed you the murder weapon.
Exactly.
What you need to do out there, we need to get that and grind all your cereal on the rifle.
Of course, we can't just run out and arrest her. I mean, we still don't have everything.
They still need that body. But soon, thanks to Greg, they dig it up right where Dee Dee had told him it would be, on her property under a concrete slab. Cause of death, 2 shots from a .38.
Once they found the body, it was over. You know, it was over. He didn't crawl in there himself, and the only one who had a motive to do that was her.
Well, you gonna arrest me? That's up to you. I want to know what happened, but that's up to you, okay?
The jig is up, but Dee Dee is still dancing. On this interrogation tape, she tries to blame the murder on someone else.
That's a common defense tactic, is to come up with a mysterious intruder, a mysterious person, a killer, a bad guy who comes and does the deed and vanishes.
Tearing a page from the Jodi Arias playbook, Dee Dee says that drug dealer named Ronald was the real killer, who threatened to kill her if she said anything.
Honestly, what he calls himself. Okay. Your mind's moving 100 miles an hour. Dee Dee, it's not feasible what you're telling me. What you're saying is impossible.
No one buys the story. Dee Dee apparently forgot she had asked Greg to pretend to be Ronald the drug dealer.
She forgets that she had put you up to be Ronald.
Exactly.
And that you know that he's imaginary.
Exactly. She forgot I was
Not that smart after all.
And imagine her shock when she finds out Greg's been working with the cops all along.
Dee Dee, we talk to him 10 times a day. We know every move you make.
You start telling so many lies that you trip over your lies, but that's very common. This is just about greed. It's all about greed.
Next, the jury hears how Shakespeare lost his wallet before he lost his life.
She made it sound like she wanted to clean him out.
Stay with us.
So if you won as much money as Abraham Shakespeare did, would you let everybody know or try to keep it a secret? Let us know on Twitter. Use the hashtag ABC2020, and we'll be right back.
'2020 continues with crazy, stupid luck. Once again, Matt Gutman.
Tonight, the largest jackpot in Powerball history could be yours.
It was just a matter of months from when lottery winner Abraham Shakespeare met Dee Dee Moore to when he wound up dead.
Abe Shakespeare was a sitting duck. There was just no way it was going to end well. Now, who knew it was going to end this badly?
State of Florida versus Doris Donegan Moore.
This is where it ended up. A courtroom and a murder trial for Dee Dee Moore. Yep, that's Dee Dee, cut off from Clairol in custody. She's now a brunette.
She took extreme, calculated steps to avoid detection.
Dee Dee pleads not guilty, and though she never takes the stand, jurors still hear plenty from her in court, in a stream of dramatic, emotional outbursts. Court officials mercifully turned off the microphones, but the judge still had distinctly negative reviews.
Just a moment, ma'am. Just a moment. I'm going to tell you once again, you need to compose yourself. You understand that?
Dee Dee has reason to be upset. Witness after witness seemed to condemn her from the stand.
Everything in this investigation pointed in the direction of one person, and that was Miss Moore.
She would pop up at the oddest times with the oddest stories.
Santeria Butler, the mother of Shakespeare's youngest child, became a key witness.
She made it sound like she wanted to clean him out.
Why do you say that?
Because she wanted to know about all of his assets, and she was like, I can help you clean him out.
Here's how prosecutors say Dee Dee did it. She had her ex-husband, John Moore, who knew nothing about the evil intent, dig a hole in her backyard, supposedly to bury garbage. Later that day, she shot Shakespeare, put him in the hole, and finally paid a concrete crew to cover that up.
Members of the jury, you are about to hear recorded conversations. These recorded conversations are proper evidence.
But the case is really all about those secretly recorded audio tapes made by Shakespeare's old friend, Greg Smith.
That's Miss Moore getting back in with Mr. Smith.
Did he ask him if he's okay or whatever?
Yeah. Well, is he still living?
The jury hears Dee Dee Moore continuing to instruct Smith to tell people Shakespeare was alive, even though he now knew his gentle friend was dead.
You tell him, yeah, he's still living.
I said, yeah, he's still living. I said, if anybody want to know if he's still living, yeah, he's still living.
Prosecutors say the recordings show Dee Dee's efforts to cover up murder.
But I guarantee you, Ronald has killed her. I just know it because the man threatened to kill my son.
Here she sounds confused. She's telling Greg about Ronald, the supposed drug dealer who she claims killed Shakespeare. She probably forgot that she'd already asked Greg to pretend to be Ronald.
They were doing a big drug deal and Ronald kept turning over his money. I think Ronald killed him for the money Abraham had on it.
You call Ronald. You tell this motherfucker, listen here, we finna get you out of this. We need to know where this motherfucker at and if you done did it.
It may seem hard to follow the plot of the play in Dee Dee's mind, but it's crystal clear to Greg. There is no drug dealer named Ronald.
Did Miss Moore address who to blame if you got caught?
Yes, she was addressing the guy Ronald, the imaginary character that she made up.
Greg testifies how Dee Dee thought she could fool everyone. For example, when she concocted a fake letter.
I'm gonna go to the hotel, I'll write that, go throw it in there, and that's it.
It was supposed to be from Abraham himself. Dee Dee wanted Greg to deliver the letter to Shakespeare's mother. She reads it back to him when she's done writing.
I just need some time. I will see you, I promise. Give me some time.
Remember, detectives first recruited Greg after he had already made a fake phone call to Shakespeare's mom, pretending to be Abraham. Now he reads the fake letter in court.
I'm grown and don't have to come back.
It takes him 20 minutes to read this forged Shakespearean soliloquy. But one large problem with the plan, Shakespeare's mom would have known Abraham couldn't read or write.
I've been through a lot, Mom. You should understand more than anyone. I just need time.
How do you do this to a woman, 70-plus-year-old woman who hasn't seen her son in months? I mean, devious, manipulative, evil.
I like being missing, just not all over the news.
I think the defense had its work cut out for it.
Dee Dee's defense to all of this, her lawyers describe the case as circumstantial.
That there is no direct evidence against her.
No witnesses' DNA or fingerprints directly linking her to the shooting.
all the evidence taken together is legally insufficient to establish a prima facie case of first-degree premeditated murder against the defendant.
Has the jury reached a verdict? Would you please hand that verdict to the bailiff?
But thanks to all of those tapes, the jurors needed only 3 hours.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. The defendant did actually possess and discharge a firearm causing death.
Still, even when the jury convicted her, Dee Dee continued to maintain her innocence.
You never see the last of these people. So she's sitting in jail thinking she can still be smarter than everybody else. This is the sociopathic mind. I had a little slip up, but I'll get out of this somehow, and I'll give an interview.
Sure enough, she gave one to us.
I know I'll go to heaven. God knows I'm innocent. That is one person that knows I'm innocent.
As that other Shakespeare wrote, the false face must hide, but the false heart doth know.
I think people are complete idiots that think I had anything to do with it. I really do. I think they have no brain cells.
Stay with us.
This special edition of 2020 Crazy Stupid Luck continues.
Convicted murderers rarely talk while they still have appeals left. But Dee Dee Moore isn't your run-of-the-mill killer.
I'm not nervous. I don't get nervous.
2020 was granted an exclusive interview with Dee Dee here in her cell block's cafeteria. Upon arrival, we quickly learned that for Ms. Moore, all the world's a stage and she a player, sauntering in, ready for showtime.
I've been on TV before.
Was I about to hear an apology for her role in this Shakespeare's tragedy? Maybe remorse about his death? Hardly. This shrew had not been tamed.
I think people are complete idiots that think I had anything to do with it. I really do. I think they have no brain cells. That's just my opinion.
Did you murder Abraham Shakespeare?
Absolutely not.
Did you bury him in your backyard?
Absolutely not.
Why are you laughing?
Because
a man is dead. He's been murdered,
yes,
clearly.
Yes.
And you're laughing.
Yeah. Because I find it entertaining that people are that ignorant. Because there are so many things that proves my innocence. You're gonna say.
Detectives say she's a woman who believes she can convince anyone of anything.
You ended up in his house with all the rest of his money. Then he ended up dead in your property.
Okay, but
shot by your gun. You don't find any of that unusual or odd?
Absolutely not, considering the people he hung around. I only knew this man for 4 months, so I think everything that people are saying is very ignorant. I knew this man 4 months, and I'm just gonna, oh my goodness, I met this man, and you know what? I'm gonna plot a murder in 4 months.
Welcome to Dee Dee's world, a place where she is the star and heroine.
Let me show you this.
And this is fan mail. This is people.
I have more than fan mail. I have places that's wanting to do a big screen, a movie producer doing a big TV screen production of my case. They want to reenact my whole case.
Like any decent actress, she could switch emotions on a dime, at times full of bluster.
I made good money myself. I didn't need Abraham Shakespeare's money.
I don't understand how you went from being a potential biographer for Shakespeare to being somehow his money manager and confidant.
Because that's just my nature. I tend to help people out when they're in need. So when Abraham needed help, I just jumped in and helped.
How did you get yourself into this mess?
Stupidity. I am not a person to hang around drug dealers. I'm not a person to hang around bad, mean, evil people. I wouldn't say naive. I just was not street smart.
Then she would melt into utter despair.
When the guilty verdict was read.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. The defendant did actually possess and discharge a firearm causing death.
What went through your mind?
They murdered me by the hands of justice. I'm murdered. You might as well kill me, because this is no type of living in here. I would never harm another human being. I would never hurt nobody. I liked Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Disney. I like Tinkerbell and kind things. I'm not a mean person. I know I'll go to heaven. God knows I'm innocent. That is one person that knows I'm innocent.
If God believes her, why didn't the jury? She blames a bad lawyer.
I personally would have convicted myself for what they got to hear, but they didn't get to hear my side. They didn't get to see my evidence. They didn't get to hear my witnesses.
Why didn't you take the stand then?
Because my
You had
lawyers...
every opportunity to defend yourself.
I wanted my witnesses to take the stand, for me to take the stand. My lawyer says we didn't need it.
Your lawyer was that convinced you were going to win?
Yes.
However, the lawyer, Byron Heilman, told us the decision not to testify was Dee Dee's.
We discussed with Ms. Moore whether she wished to testify. That discussion had gone on for quite some time, and she made the decision not to do that.
So they think I'm guilty by sitting there looking down.
Nevertheless, since she claims her case was not presented in court, she laid it out for us. Sort of.
People were trying to frame you.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because, first of all, I was an easy target.
A target, she claims, for drug dealers, still sticking to that story about the so-called drug dealer, Ronald. She explained that his band of killers threatened her.
They were going to take my son and kill him and chop him up and put him on my doorstep.
Who?
These guys that the sheriff's department says didn't exist. That we have witnesses that they do exist, and there's blood DNA at the crime scene of them. I can't make up DNA. I'm not a magician.
Detectives say they didn't ignore blood at the scene, but say it proved nothing about Ronald. But perhaps most ludicrous, this.
Did you ever propose that you would have any sort of sexual relationship with the detective?
Absolutely, because Ronald was telling me the detective was playing bad cop, good cop, and he purposely made me flirt with him. He's like, you can tell when he's recording you because he's not recording you when he's flirting with you. He says, flirt back with him and you'll know when he's recording you. So I had to. My life was at stake.
Do you understand how listening to you is bewildering?
Well, do you understand how listening to you is just, it sounds like a bunch of stupidity?
Well, you're just going around and around. I mean, listening to me sounds like stupidity, but you're not making any sense.
Okay, that's because you're looking at it the way the court system wants you to look at it. You are trying to convict me.
As for those witnesses who corroborated her story, Dee Dee claims these papers are from some of them, but she wouldn't show us or reveal their names.
Can we talk to your witnesses? Who are they? Do you mind if we take down their names and maybe contact them?
I'd have to ask my lawyer, but I don't know if they'll talk to you. But
I mean, Greg Smith talked to us, so maybe they might.
Yeah, but the thing is that I have to ask their permission because they are witnesses in an ongoing case. Like this is one of, just so you can see it from far away, this is stuff that's not in my discovery. These are witness statements. You understand
These
that?
witnesses don't exist, and that certainly looks like your handwriting.
What do you mean?
That looks like your handwriting. What you said were witnesses' notes looks like your handwriting.
No,
I don't
it's
think
not.
that these witnesses exist. Yeah.
As our time ran out and Dee Dee saw the curtain falling on this performance.
We're just trying to help you.
Yeah.
You
you're
want me to
not.
get the story straight. I'm happy to investigate it.
You're not.
Why don't you give us the witnesses and then we'll have evidence of Ronald actually existing. Thank you.
She dangled one name as she exited stage
Thank you very
right.
much.
Her first name is Deanna. I'll give you that.
Deanna.
Deanna.
We asked the detectives about Deanna. They say it was just Dee Dee's latest concoction, a final parting lie from a convicted murderer who was set to spend the rest of her life behind bars. As for Greg Smith, the man who played the fool in order to put Dee Dee away, you can find him back in the barbershop, still cutting hair. And just a couple of miles down the road, a simple resting place for Fortune's least favored son, Abraham Shakespeare, a man who just played the lotto hoping for good luck, and found out the hard way that indeed some rise by sin and some by virtue fall.
Next, the office lottery pool. Can it turn into a Shark Tank?
I was paranoid about going out of the house.
If you think chipping in always brings you together, think again. The do's and don'ts of doing it in a group. Winning, that is. "2020 returns with crazy stupid luck."
All right, I've got good news and bad news. Let's start with the good. You've just won a big lottery. Now the bad, you've got to split it with everyone in your office. So take a look at this before you chip in on the next office pool where you could be swimming with the sharks. Here's Cecilia Vega.
How would you react if you won the lottery? Like this, right? Well, check out these folks from Toms River, New Jersey. They call themselves Ocean 16. They're a group of 16 government workers who just last month announced to the world they were millionaires.
We're very happy, as some of my friends would say.
They banded together to buy a ticket for the $448 million Powerball drawing.
I hope you've got those tickets. Good luck.
Lo and behold, they won. Ocean 16 looks an awful lot like this group. The Lucky Seven. 7 co-workers from Queens whose ship also just sailed in.
How do you feel winning all that money?
All in all, pretty damn lucky.
The truth is, though, these folks are all actors, the stars of the new ABC TV program, Lucky 7. But on the show, premiering in 2 weeks, winning the lottery isn't the end of the story, it's just the beginning.
You okay back there?
The drama is what happens next. In real life, it's a story you don't hear that often. What happens for all those people we see on TV once the jumping up and down and smiling for the cameras finally comes to an end? It was a bit of a surprise for this group, also known as the Lucky Seven, co-workers in a medical lab in Orange County, California.
And I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at the ticket. And I said, holy I think we won the lottery.
Jennifer Habib says the first big shock about winning was how uncomfortable she quickly felt.
I was paranoid about going out of the house for a while. The pictures by that time had been taken and were in the paper, and I didn't want to be identified.
That's part of why she and all her coworkers soon quit. Sure, they didn't need the job, but they say being there made them uneasy.
When you win the lottery, it throws you into such a conundrum of other problems that you can't even begin to anticipate. And it's really hard when you've never been exposed to that kind of money at any one time.
With their newfound freedom, one coworker split the money with a spouse and promptly got divorced. One moved to the Philippines and took up pig farming. None of them anticipated getting sued for a share of the loot, but it happened. A jealous coworker tried to convince a judge that he was part of the group, even though he was off the day they purchased the ticket. The judge didn't buy it. Turns out, it's not uncommon. In Elizabeth, New Jersey, the hard-hatted 5 construction workers weren't fighting someone outside of their group, but the guy who bought their winning ticket in the first place. He tried to claim he picked the lucky number separately from his group purchase, but he couldn't prove it in court, and everybody kept their booty. But in Indianapolis, Indiana, the sensational stylists are still waiting for a judge to sort out who gets what in the case of a group of hairdressers in a similar tangle. They can't agree if the winning ticket was bought for the group or not. At this real estate office in Plantation, Florida, though, it's a very different story for the Good Samaritans.
And there it is, our $1 million Powerball check.
When a group of workers here got their Powerball winnings, there were no lawsuits.
This is what I bought with my money.
With my money, I brought a new car.
I got LASIK eye surgery. Now I'm 2015 vision, perfect vision.
Beyond the normal life-changing purchases for themselves, though, these folks made life different for others. First, there was Jen Maldonado.
There's our lucky charm.
She was brand new to the office and hadn't contributed to the pool. Yet after they won, everyone agreed to cut her in just because.
Well, that was very emotional. Who gives money to new people who you just met, you know?
We were nice and
right.
did the right thing.
But that was only the start. It became a huge